Istanbul is Little Kurdistan. In the early 1990s, millions of migrants fled their troubled homeland in the southeast to find a job and stability in Turkey's most flourishing town. Kurdish pop group Journeyman, which translates roughly as Fire of Life, is hugely popular among the young here. Previously, lyrics written in Kurdish about freedom were a recipe for a visit from the heavy-handed Turkish police. Those days are over, but the music is still censored on the radio.
Our songs tell stories about our lives. For example, the song about my friend Helene. She was an actress in a political theatre group. She died in 1995 when some armed people opened fire on a public bus. The killers were never arrested. They just disappeared.
Yani silahlı kişiler tarafından bomba patladı. O bombada kaybettik onu.
Turkey is still getting used to the seeming end of Kurdish separatism. Here in Ankara, soldiers are mocking up a riot to practice de-escalation. The security forces act with restraint. But in reality, the police have a far less restrained reputation. At this protest in 2004, police took batons to many unarmed protesters who were championing minority rights. The law has now changed to allow more freedom of protest, but it will take time for the security forces to adapt to the new rules. Diyarbakir, in the southeast of Turkey, is the centre of Kurdish-dominated provinces. 2.5 years ago, martial law was lifted in the troubled province. Many reforms have been passed by the government since then, but change on the ground is a slow process. Local station Gün TV only plays Journeyman's love songs. Political songs and the news are strictly censored, but even non-political Kurdish music has to be approved by the Council for Radio and Television.
If you want to broadcast a program in Kurdish, you have to send scripts to the Council for Radio and Television a month before. But how can you produce news a month in advance? That's impossible. So at the moment we can only broadcast entertainment programs in Kurdish.
Kurdish was forbidden for centuries. Now at last, there are courses to study the language. From Diyarbakir, we're driving 200 kilometres to the town of Urfa. Urfa isn't just populated by Kurds. Arabs, Kurds and Turks all live together in this 2,000-year-old town. The Conservative Islamic Party is the most popular party here, one of the reasons why the first Kurdish language course could get opened in this town. There are enough interested students, but there are still only 6 courses in the whole of Turkey. A lot of problems remain unsolved, for example, the Kurdish alphabet.
W is no problem in English names, but it is forbidden to use Turkish names with W, because the letter doesn't exist in the Turkish alphabet.
The former ban on Kurdish has left its mark on the region. A lot of Kurds don't speak their mother tongue properly, and the younger ones are usually not able to write or read in Kurdish.
I am a teacher myself, but I am illiterate in Kurdish. I'm only able to speak it. We want to have Kurdish as a taught language at schools. Teachers have to get trained at the universities. A few language courses are not enough.
Politics affects all spheres of life in the region. The distribution of water here has long been used in games of brinkmanship. Giant dams were supposed to bring welfare and progress, but in reality, farmers in Saruk, close to Urfa, got only deserted land and grew poorer. In the village, water is strictly rationed because it has to be brought from the nearest big city in tanks. The farmers keep few animals because of the shortage of water. Arable farming is nearly impossible owing to the dryness of the soil. Villagers in this area vote for the Pro-Kurdish party, meaning the ruling Conservative Islamic Town Council won't deliver irrigation. Most families have been forced to leave the village.
This land was very fertile before, when we still had water. But that's politics. This isn't really a place to live anymore. Men and animals need water.
Living conditions in the countryside have forced many Kurds to migrate to bigger cities. We are driving with Huseyin to the shanty towns of Urfa. Kurdish migrants make up nearly 2/3 of the city's population nowadays. Almost none of them are here by choice. Huseyin used to work here as a teacher. He was fired for suggesting poverty was linked to the Turkish suppression of the Kurds. Cemal Dogan came 10 years ago as a widow with 8 children. The Turkish military had burnt her village.
No. I don't want to return to my village. What will I do there? There's nothing left. I have a home and peace here. The village is gone.
Cemal Dogan comes from the province of Cernak. Cernak was a paradise before the fighting between Turkish military and the Kurdish separatists started. The soil of ancient Mesopotamia was always fertile. Villages in this area were once rich. People lived in solid stone houses, close to lots of water. But nowadays they sit empty. 500 villages in this region are now uninhabited. 2.5 years later, after martial law was lifted, the majority of the region is still wasteland. Tarskoy is one of the rare villages that is still inhabited. The villagers pay paramilitaries to act as village guards. In the 90s, these paramilitaries were used by the Turkish military to help crush the Kurdish guerrillas. Many Kurds refused to join the unit and resent the soldiers, but there were only 2 choices: to leave or to get a village guard. Kurdistan's past is still visible everywhere. The Kurds are tired of war and they have dropped claims for a separate state. But they still want a demilitarisation of the region. Faisal's father had been a village guard and was killed in an attack. Abdul Qadir's brother died fighting with the PKK. Although neither of them had ever touched a gun, they were forced to leave the area. Abdul Qadir's father was once a rich farmer. Nowadays, he drives a cab in the next city.
Every year we make an application to the governor, but they won't allow us to return to the village. We have to get village guards first. My brother was probably killed by a village guard. I don't want to become something in peacetime that I refused even to be in wartime.
Faisal took his case to the European Court for Human Rights. His father had been booby-trapped in a minibus full of village guards. It is still unclear what happened. The military claims it was the PKK that killed him. But the relatives of the 11 murdered men believe it was a cover by the Turkish military to justify further attacks.
My father had been taken to a military police station before. The circumstances are clear. They were on a road by the banks of the river surrounded by military posts. So what happened? I want an explanation.
It is vital for the southeast that its people get the chance to return home without too much bureaucratic wrangling if reform is to work. A wedding is celebrated in the shantytown of Diyarbakir. Kurdish singing is allowed, as long as it isn't too political.